Welcome back to Mad About Modeling. What I'm going to talk to you about in this video is pulleys. Pulleys for cars, any machinery that uses an engine that would require a pulley. There's aftermarket pulleys from Detail Master and places like that where you can get them to look more realistic, even machined. There used to be a company, I think they were called Arrowhead, that used to machine them. I think there's still companies that do machine them. If you have the access to the lathe, I would really suggest doing it. I had a lathe at one time, but had to get rid of it for certain reasons. So lately, since I like scratch building and trying to learn new things, I've been trying to come up with pulleys that you can do out of plastic. Now, the pulleys that I have here, that you see here, was produced by using the Micro Mark punch set, which I could do a couple videos on this thing alone. This thing is very valuable. It's great for punching out your decal sheet with your dials on it for like RPM, your tack, your speedo, because it makes them perfectly round, and you can usually get the right size to put it right in your dashboard. But that's not what I'm using it for today, or have used it. As you can see, this is a piece that I made. And it's kind of rough because I didn't sand each one. I just threw it together for this video. I have those on this engine here, which is a 1950, hoping you can see that, kind of getting it close as I can to the camera. 1950 Chevy pickup called the Aztec, not the Aztec Warrior, but the Egyptian Raider. These pulleys were made on the Micro Mark punch out of plastic. The pulley here and the generator pulley. The pulley here is actually a guitar string that holds the guitar string in your guitar. If you know anybody in the family that plays guitar and they change out their springs or their strings from time to time, you can go ahead and ask them to hold those for you, or just go get a pack, Guitar Center, $5, and use those for pulleys. How I do it is I get the plastic and I figure out what size pulley that I need. For instance, this one was the biggest punch that I had. So I made 2 of those by punching that size out, and this size here for the groove. Hopefully you can see that. And then what you do at that point is you're going to go ahead and glue them together and sandwich them together so you have your pulley. Now keep in mind, I suggest taking real fine sandpaper and sanding off any rough edges from that. And then that gives you this little doodad here that looks like your pulley. Now, it's flat on the face, and that does not look like a pulley until you punch out this piece right here. And how I did that was, while the plastic was still in the punch, I punched out this hole here, and it leaves a hole in the plastic. So what you have to do is basically just line it up in sight here to make sure it's centered, punch it out, and then you'll have a nice little ring that you glue onto the pulley to give it that lip. And then you can go in and get Grant line bolts and put a bolt right in the middle of that. On this engine here for the Egyptian Raider, what I did was, and you can't see it, I had a couple Grant lines on there, but I thought it'd be really cool to go ahead and put a bead on there, like jewel, so you can't see it, but it looks better when you have a bolt on it, bolt head. And I suggest going to your model shop, train shop, and getting those. They're called Grant line, and they come in a bunch of different hex sizes, and they replicate bolts. Or you can just use Plastistruck hex shapes and salami cut them with your X-Acto to get your little bolt heads. But that's how I kind of make scratch built pulleys. I mean, they look okay if they're in a car, you know, maybe not a rat rod. I mean, if you really want the best and the brightest, machined metal looks the best, I would suggest buying a machine. But if you're into scratch building, wanting it to keep it as original that you can in scratch building. You can try that method. It's just the idea that I came up with. They don't look too bad at all. And on this engine as well, the gold pulley that you see here is off the guitar strings. Some come gold, some come red, some come green, either anodized aluminum, but it looks really, or even steel. I don't know really what it's made out of, but it doesn't look too bad for a pulley at all. Machined look. So you could put all three of those on there, but I wanted to try out my handmade pulley, and I think it come out pretty good. But you know, give it a try. Doesn't always have to be the way I do it. Whatever works best for you. If you want to buy a machine, I mean, they do look good that way. I had made a bunch for mine when I had my lathe, but sometimes you just don't have access to a tool like that. So give it a try, and thanks for stopping back by.